right now, just because it usually, there's usually a few glitches. So I have to start it early, and then I have to grab my jacket, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
And it's funny because you see one screen I have curly hair and one screen I have straight hair.
Kim, it's live. It's live already.
It's live. Hi, this is Kimberly Warren, and you're just now tuning in to the solution.
And your mic just went out.
You're muted now, Kim.
Yeah, Kim, we lost you. And you're frozen.
We are getting ready to start our Solution Summit. This is our 4th week of talking about the hard things, but the things that make our nation heal and make our nation great. So we have former Councilperson Gary Wilkinson that is trying to sign in now. Go share this with your friends, do a watch party, and show the world what we're doing here in our neck of the woods in Missouri. We have some fantastic esteemed guests today. And so again, our show starts right at the top of the hour. We're trying to cut it down to 60 minutes. We got some heavy hitters that got a lot to say today, but we're going to try to cut this down. So right now, what I want you to do is just share it. And when you share it, then type in or click in watch party. And then you can actually share that on your page. You can also invite your friends. You can make comments. We have LD Data Solutions behind the scenes, which is Leameana Davis, and she is going to make sure she entertains your questions and sends me the questions. As I'm multitasking here, you will see 2 screens for me. But as I'm multitasking, she will be looking at the Facebook live stream. I'm not sure if we're connecting to YouTube tonight, but we have people as far as New York that are watching our Facebook show. And we're going to talk about economic empowerment, generational poverty, as well as welfare systems and generational wealth, which we hardly even get to that because we're just trying to keep the heat on and the lights on and the air conditioner rolling. So we just got a few minutes to the top of the hour. Just give us a second. We're having it officially start the show, but just give us a minute and we'll have everyone start our 4th or 5th week Solution Summit. Just one moment. We have someone else coming in right now. We have Bishop Tolbert, our entrepreneur bishop, police commissioner in Kansas City. We have the world-renowned entrepreneur of the year. That's my title for him. Steve Craig is on the show. We have Leameana Davis in the background. We have a few others that are logging on. Let me go on and let them in the room. There we go. Let me send this link out here. Almost there. We just got a few minutes to go. If you're tuning into live on Facebook on the Mid-City Excellence page, you can send your questions right there as LD Data Solutions will be entertaining those. Miss Leameana, can you see if you can get our COVID nurse practitioner? There's Teresa. She is our guru, technical writer, and entrepreneur in St. Louis. If you need a business plan, if you need a loan, whatever, she's going to show you how to access all that. She's been doing this for 25, 30 years. She's the guru to keep St. Louis running, and she's going to weigh in tonight. We have just about a minute, just one moment. I'm trying to let a few more people in the room, and we'll go on and get started. We have Chief Connally, St. Joe PD. Chief, it's coming in. One moment, and we'll get it started officially. Again, if you're just now tuning in, We are starting our Solution Summit in just a few minutes. We're just letting a few more people in the room. And we are starting our Solution Summit. This is our 4th week on talking about racial reconciliation. We're talking about how we enhance our community. We're going to talk about accessing the wealth and if we really need the systems that are there. Some people say, no, we are not ready to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Kimberly, we lost you again. There you go.
Okay, there we go. So I am going to turn off all my other, I think most of the people are in the room. So I'm going to turn this down. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Very well, thank you.
Okay, let's go on and let's see. LD Data Solutions is behind the scenes. I'm going to see if you can contact former councilperson Gary Wilkinson. Miss Leameana, can you? I'm sending you a message now. If you can contact them, and then we'll add them on the show as we go.
Okay.
We also have Ron Barbosa that is coming on. He's been our longtime banker for 45 years. Just give me one moment. Ladies and gentlemen, give us one moment. We have just 2 more people coming in. If you're just now joining on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, we have some experts from across the nation that are going to talk about how we're keeping this economy going, how to break out a generational curse, and also how to create wealth within your family. And wealth may just mean you were able to pay your debts for the year and you were able to make a payment to the IRS, which a lot of those payments have been pushed into August and July. Student loans have been pushed, I think, to July. And so we have a lot of leverage here, and some people are going to make some investments, or they may flip a house. I don't know. But it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for us to see how we can have a different focus for our families. As post-COVID, and some of us are, still fighting to try to see if we're going to get employment, if we're going to, how we're going to handle that. So I think we're about ready to go. Leameana, do you see us live streaming on Facebook? Leameana?
Yes, I see you. And Martha says that your voice is breaking up on the live.
Okay. Okay, I am going to stay focused now, and anybody else coming in the room, I'll let you handle that, Miss Leameana. Welcome to the Solution Summit for June 18th at 6 o'clock-ish, and we are just so tickled today. We have an array of guests with a plethora of expertise. There we go. And so right now we are going to go on and get started on our show. We have a hot topic tonight that is economic empowerment and generational poverty, welfare systems, and wealth creation. I'm going to introduce our guests and let them just say a little bit about what their background is. And then we're going to jump right into question 1. We have about 3 or 4 tonight. Okay, so we have with us Chief Chris Connally with the St. Joseph Police Department. How long have you been here now, Chief?
Well, I've been with the city of St. Joseph for about 14 and a half years, and I've been with your Solution Summit every time online, and every time going back the last couple of years.
Every single time. Thank you. I appreciate that. And how long have you worked with the law enforcement in any capacity?
I'm in my 36th year in law
Oh
enforcement.
goodness. Wow. So he wrote the book. I am so glad we had a relationship with him before COVID and also before all the hot, emotionally charged topics that we're talking about with police conduct. We also have Entrepreneur of the Year is my title for him, Steve Craig, who has been involved and a friend of Mid-City Excellence, but St. Joseph and Savannah for many, many years. And he has been a mover and a shaker. I hope we don't lose him there. I don't see a picture, but he's being camera shy right now. Mr. Steve Craig, has his hands in everything: ice cream, Aspen, chocolate factories, East Hill malls, and several malls across the nation, and some other projects. So he's the one that's going to help us move towards wealth creation. He was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he's going to tell us how he went to college with $50 in his pocket and what he's doing for his nation and his family today to help sustain us economically. Steve Craig, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kimberly. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. We also have Ron Barbosa. We'll introduce him when he comes on the show. 45 years in banking at Security Bank, formerly First Bank of Missouri. The only person of color in at the highest level of president for the bank, and we just appreciate what he brings to the table. We also have Bishop Mark Tolbert, and I have a long list of to-dos, but he is the only minority servant on the Police Commission Board of Kansas City. Welcome to the show, Bishop Tolbert.
Thank you.
He is also the founder of the Leameana Tolbert Academy, which has been heavily funded by the Bill Gates Foundation, who's going to open the door for me, right? And he's had as many as 700 and 800 kids in his school. Is it K through 12th grade, K through 9th?
K through 8, and we're in our 21st year.
Wow, fantastic. He is a for-profit entrepreneur as well as a nonprofit guru. And he's going to talk about what he's doing to help lead the nation or an international organization as the vice president of the PAW organization. And hundreds of churches are under his leadership. Did I get that right? We also have former Congressperson Gary Wilkinson, 3 terms he served leading our city. He was over a finance committee, and he is also serving in his, I'm not sure if he's going to ever retire, but in his retirement, he's serving with the Black Archives and the St. Joseph Museum Board. We will be at Juneteenth on Saturday afternoon. And okay, here's Steve Craig coming back in. We'll be at Juneteenth. Yeah, good evening. Welcome back to the show. We will be at Juneteenth.
Kimberly?
Yes.
If you'll let me back in, I've switched computers because the first one started doing an update in the middle of this.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I will take that one out and we will go on and ask you to share your video. There we go. It said make the co-host. I don't know if I want to make you the co-host or not.
Let's don't do that.
Okay. Hopefully we can see you in just a moment. Wonderful. So we have former councilperson Gary Wilkinson to the show. Welcome to the show, Mr. Wilkinson.
Thanks, Kim. Glad to be
here.
Thank
you for being here. Thank you for being here. We also have coming back for the second week in the road, Lateesa Posey, who is our COVID specialist. She's at the Epic Center in New York and just helped open a new hospital there. She's been in pediatrics and now she's just caring for the entire family, keeping people alive and pushing them towards optimal health. She's going to talk about her background, growing in the environment that she grew up in, and what she's doing for her community, her city, and for her family to move towards wealth creation. Hello, Lateesa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We last but not least, we'll have David Foster come join us in just a little bit. I won't introduce him when he comes in, but you all know he's a real estate developer. He's also has a lot of expertise in videography and shot the president. He photographed the president before former President Obama has spent some time at VH1 and MTV. So he'll jump in there and kind of be the voice for the youth in a little bit. So let's go on and jump in there. That's all of our introductions. I hope you're seeing us live stream. Put your questions there. Leameana Davis, LD Data Solutions, will be entertaining your questions and sending them to me. Leameana, I am going to send you the number. Okay, I am going to send you the number for Ron Barbosa. And he said, I said, what are you, Latino, Hispanic, Spanish? He said, just call me Mexican. Don't call me late for dinner. So he's going to join us. I'm going to send you the phone number, not on live, but Leameana, I'm going to inbox you if you'll check that. So our first question at the top of the hour is, okay, what is the real battle we must address? Is it culture? Is it color? So right now, the world is at odds. We're trying to put it back together. I don't know if it's going to get worse before it gets better, but who wants to start this? And I kind of stole the culture or color part because of Steve Craig and a conversation with him about I'm begging for workers at my shopping malls, at my places of business. We have 1,200 manufacturing jobs available just in St. Joseph alone. I'm slowing down my speech because there's a little lag on Facebook, I hear. We have millions that are out of work, receiving unemployment, and some do not want to go back to work. Some employers are having conversations surrounding race and discrimination, but what about this culture of Black, white, Latino, biracial that do not want to work? Steve, is it culture or is it our color? What's going on with this workforce?
You know, I'd say if you were talking to me 50 years ago, I would say it was somewhat color related. In preparing for today's discussion, I took time out to look at some people that I have met to see some of the things that they faced. And one of the people I looked up was Condoleezza Rice, and some of the challenges that she faced growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, at the probably most critical time of race relations. Despite that, you know, here's a young lady that wanted to get ahead in life, wanted to do better for herself, found a way to get to the University of Denver, ultimately to Harvard University, and then back to get a doctorate at the University of Denver. And we all know what she's done since then. I think a lot of it is about the individual, how badly the individual wants to get ahead. Another great example, Dr. Ben Carson. I mean, I don't think there's a better example. I've had the opportunity to meet him a few times. I've listened to him. I've read his book. I think it's astonishing to think that almost every child that he grew up with is dead today. He and his brother are the only two people left in his entire Detroit neighborhood. But he wanted a better life, and his mother, who was someone who's illiterate, wanted a better life for the two boys as well, and gave them the inspiration to read and explore the world by book. And ultimately that led to a scholarship to the University of Michigan and on to med school, and then on to an illustrious career. And now he's serving our country in government. Those are some pretty high examples. But I think for the average person, and what I at least attempted to do in my life, is to find a way to create value for myself. How could I make myself more valuable in the eyes of other people, to have a skill or an understanding? You mentioned the jobs that are available. There's over 1,200 jobs when you talk about Altech engineering, gray manufacturing, and you talk about people like Snorkel. They're looking for people. And if you go to their factories, you'll drive out on 36 Highway, you'll see the biggest factory, I believe, ever built in St. Joe is being constructed now, over 500,000 square feet. They're desperate to find people that have a skill that can help move that company forward. And they've got a very bright future. And I know people that work there and have worked there for many, many years. But if I was a young person today, I would be looking at finding some skills that are offered. And we're one of the few communities that has a technical institute, in the Hilliard does, that you can learn some great skills and start your life off with a darn good job with a great opportunity.
So
fantastic.
Kim,
Go ahead, Bishop.
Let me jump in there. So What we have to understand in today's culture is that we're not dealing with today, we're dealing with 100 years that has culminated into what we have today. We have to remember things like it was against the law to teach Black people to read, and we just celebrated the bombing of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, where a town that was self-sufficient was burnt down. We were never intended to become upstanding citizens. That's not why we were brought to America. So even when you look back to the 40s, 50s, and 60s, when voting rights and all that came, even when laws were passed, there were still things to keep us down. So I can't talk about today without talking about 100 years from today, which caused what we have now. And so we are not going to heal the ills of today until we go back and figure out some of the things that happened in yesteryear and try to heal those ills. If you single me out, I've done fairly well. I've been a franchise owner. I've sold for national companies. I dropped out of college, and now I got PhDs and those folks that work for me, but you can't single me or one African-American out. You've got to talk about culture, and what has happened to us as a culture has stymied us as a culture. And so, yeah, we can cherry pick people, but that's not the solution for where we are today.
We have a former councilperson, Gary Wilkinson, that's on the show. He is one of the few that remember businesses up and down Masseny Street, something good in the hood, and we're trying to recapture that and find out what minority-based businesses are here and the people that have been sustained and successful. And what are you finding out in your research? Is it a culture? Are there some, in the millionaire mind, they have a list of what makes people succeed and what's making them fail, what's making them stay on welfare, and what's breaking them out of it. What's the mindset? What's the climate like? And kind of speak what happened just maybe 30 years ago. Were there barriers? Have we overcome that because Obama's been the president? Have we arrived?
There have always been barriers. And the barriers began when, we'll say right after slavery, there was a great push during the Reconstruction. And there was a lot of enlightenment. There was a lot of advances made by our people. And then that was pushed back. And whenever we seem to take 2 steps forward, someone wants to pull us 3 steps back. And I would have to agree with the bishop. It's a cultural thing. During the 30s, when they had the black codes, and so he had mentioned it before, it was legally impossible for a whole race to advance because of some of those restrictions that were placed upon us by those who were in power. Now you come back down to, well, when they went to North in the Great Migration, they weren't accepted into those neighborhoods. So they established their own neighborhoods. We established our own neighborhoods. We had our own businesses. This advanced to a point until segregation was ended in 1954. And there was an opportunity to go into other neighborhoods and there's kind of a dissimulation. Our businesses suffered during that time. And it's not to say that's just the price of integration. But right now, I think we're at the point where we need to start looking at our own neighborhoods and start to reestablish those mom and pop shops. I have a little video and I'll see if I can play it later, but it addresses a lot of those things that you're talking about now. So I would have to say it's a culturally thing, but initially it was race-based.
I've heard a lot of people say segregation hurt us. And some of them were graduates of the Bartlett Center. And they said, when I had to go to this other school, we lost our friends, we lost our Black teachers. We were little fish in a big pond. It was scary. We didn't like it. And it was difficult for us. So at one point though, if a business wants to be successful, they have to push outside of the box, outside of just having the Hispanic support, for the Mexicans and the Black support for the Blacks. And I always say Obama did not win the presidency with Black people. He had to reach outside his cultural. So at what point do you say, I want to be mainstream organization, I want to be a Fortune 500 company, and regardless of my race, I have an opportunity, I'm going to fight it in a strategic way and link arms with people that are not like me. So I know there is Jim Crow laws. I know there is racism and discrimination that held us down. But Teresa, can you maybe give us a little bit about that? Because you're right there in St. Louis, working with Black America, White America, Latino women, and with her Life Happens business consulting firm, as a business consulting, a technical writer, a loan writer, trying to find the capital for your companies there. You have been doing this, for many, many years, probably over 30 years. Tell us how you're positioning your businesses to compete within their community and also with mainstream America so they can sustain.
I can hear you. You're kind of fading in and out. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, so I wanted to address a couple of things that some of the other gentlemen said. When it comes to the color codes, there's a book that I recommend to everyone to read. It's called The Color of the Law. And what it deals with is how the zoning laws actually kept us segregated. The FHA didn't allow Black people to get loans for their homes until the 1960s. So that's why a lot of Black people, even middle-class Black people, lived in the projects because they weren't allowed to live in other neighborhoods. That set us back. And when it comes to businesses, as the other gentleman was saying, the K through 12, what they do, they imitate what they see. And so when they see teachers and they see doctors, they say, okay, I can be a teacher, I can be a doctor. But when they're in their neighborhoods and they're on the corner, they don't see people who look like them, who own the corner store, that own the beauty supply houses, that own the gas stations. They can imitate what they can't see. So when we desegregated, those businesses are no longer Black owned. So in order for us to come together and for those K through 12, which is what I think we need to concentrate on now, in order for them to emulate what they see, they need to see it. So it's a problem. And again, it goes back 400 years. I'm going to go back past 100. I'm going to go 400 years back. It goes back to when the first 1619, when the first slave ship hit the shores of America. We are in a turbulent time, but it's an exciting time. I found that the more people have had to survive, the better business owners they are. So I think that it has to do with them being able to see and be able to imitate. In order to imitate, we maybe have block grants so that small, like she said, mom and pops come back that actually are the grocery store owners, the beauty supply owners, not just barbershops and hair salons.
Although coming out of COVID, we need the barbershops and hair salons. Thank you for opening them back up, whoever was over that. We don't have the mayor on here tonight, but it's getting kind of scary there. I'm just trying to lighten it up. This is such a heavy topic. So we go back 400 years. We only got a 60-minute show, but there are times where, I know you have seen the loan business and the lending companies change. And she said, we need to go back to, training the youth for success, how to come off of poverty, the welfare system, subsidized housing. So right now, I want to talk about, you said there was a time where, we need the doctors, the attorneys, and we do have a daughter of not one, but two doctors, Lateesa Posey, our COVID specialist, pediatric nurse practitioner that's here tonight. So tell us how life was. I met you when you were probably 11 or 12, or maybe just a little bit older. And tell me about life living with the Cosbys, because everybody thought you had it made. I couldn't understand why you wanted to come live in the hood in my house with 7 brothers and sisters and my mom and dad. We loved you like our sister. But
I love you too.
What was going on in the Cosby home with 2 doctors? You was born into wealth, so you got all the money right now, right?
No. I mean, as I got older, I recognized their own struggle, like my parents' struggle. They worked hard and we had a lot of stuff. But my dad was born in 1942, Mississippi, right? Mm-hmm. He said when he was going to school and then medical school, and he's down there, he would go places where the patients didn't want him to touch them. You know, or my mom had problems when she was in college. They kept trying to give her med tech classes instead of giving her the classes to prepare her for medical school applications. And, you know, listening to that and listening, you know, to her stories growing up in Detroit, and she was involved with the Black Panthers and food pantries and taking care of the community.
Watch out, we got a cop on here tonight. No.
Part of the positive efforts of the Black Panther Party, and then you get into healthcare and you realize that behind it, it's not so glossy, right? It's not so pretty. That Black people and people of color have poor health outcomes with nothing to do with personal decisions or how they're living, and more to do with the institutionalized racism that exists in healthcare. And you grow up to work in healthcare and you see again how the maternal death rate, or the death rate during birth, is 3 times higher for Black women than it is for white women. Again, nothing to do with their personal health choices, everything to do with the institutions that take care of them. So growing up was a great childhood and a revealing childhood. It made me who I am, and it helped me do the work that I'm doing now.
Thank you so much for sharing. Do you see some disparity in New York? And I do want to be discreet where you're working and everything, but do you see some disparity with the people that are surviving COVID and coronavirus?
Yeah, I think nationwide that communities of color, including Black people, are faring worse with coronavirus, which is not, it's consistent with our history in healthcare. You know, and then that on top of, you know, all the Facebook experts, you know, and so you have videos coming out that they're killing people in the hospital, and then you have this inexplicable, you know, higher rate of death, and it's hard to combat that. It's hard to get people help here because they have an innate fear of the healthcare system that also dates back over all those hundreds of years, including the Tuskegee experiment, including OBGYNs experimenting on women and pregnant women. And so there's a lot of mistrust. And I think that that's also contributing to some of the poor health outcomes here.
We have a lot of business owners and business managers here. And so I want to move, the debate can continue about the lack of diversity and why it's there in the culture of poverty. Ruby Payne calls it the framework of poverty. And how do we get to the millionaire mindset? So what is the key to sustaining a business in any economy, especially in these ever-changing times of viruses, shutdowns, crises, poor race relationships? So is it access to more capital? Is it resiliency, tenacity? Is it the connections and networks that we need? Mentorship, education, pray, faith. We got a pastor here. What is the key to sustaining your business? So for any economy and for any crises?
Well,
Steve, go ahead.
When you talk about sustaining a business, of course, in the African-American neighborhood, you first of all have got to be able to write a business plan and then get a loan. You know, most African-American businesses go out because they don't have enough capital to, in the first place, to run a business. And so, you know, as I said, I've been fortunate. We got in the charter school business 21 years ago, but I used to work for George Johnson, who owned Ultra Sheen Afro Sheen. And I remember being at one of the conventions, and he told the story of in 1953, as a chemist, he had an idea for a product. He went to the bank and told them he wanted to, start this hair care company. And they told him, yeah, looks like a good idea, but now we don't think you have enough business experience to run a business. So he heard a ad on the radio that talked about a loan for a vacation. So he put on one of these big flowery Hawaiian shirts and went down to Household Finance, that's probably before your days, and told them he wanted to take his family on a vacation. And they gave him the money to go on vacation, and he took that and started Johnson Products that in 1954 he opened up. And when I went to work for them in the 80s, they were grossing somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million plus a year. So, before we can sustain a business, we got to be able to get the right kind of loans and capital infusions so that even after you get it started, then you got to grow, because you can't start a business just to maintain it. You got to start a business and then have plans to grow it, which takes capital infusion. So, there again, it all goes back to some systemic things that have worked against us.
So I specialize in writing business plans and getting people money. I specialize in minority and women-owned businesses because I know how hard it is for people of color to get money. So what I have done is I have established relationships with banks so that so that my clients, I know the banks that I work with are very familiar with my work. So they know that if I send them someone, that it's going to be someone that I've actually vetted, and that they know it's going to be a good loan. I also have banks calling me, sending people to me saying, hey, they're not ready, go to Teresa. So I'm saying that to say that it has been difficult. It has been years that I built those relationships, but it is something that's necessary, particularly for women and minorities who are trying to start businesses, because it is there is redlining. Because I do specialize with women and minority, I have all women. So when I see certain women that don't look like me, who can go in with the same criteria as one of my other ladies that I sent in there, and they get along right away, but the other ladies that I seen that may look like me, they have to jump through some hoops. It is frustrating, but I've learned how to maneuver that. But when going back to Kim's question, I think that all those things you mentioned are things that are necessary to sustain a business in this climate. I think that COVID, I've seen some businesses that I work with. I have a main client in California who was a multi-million-dollar business, and they are shut down. So there are some businesses now that haven't been able to get past COVID. You're not guaranteed. If you have an entrepreneur spirit, I was in the corporate world for a long time, and I always got what they consider good jobs. You have to have an entrepreneur spirit to do this, because it's not for the faint and heart. But there are some really good businesses out there that haven't survived. So I don't know if there is a great answer, but your networking is important. Being resourceful is important. As the bishop saying, you having the capital or how to know how to get the capital is important, but you're not guaranteed, particularly in this time, and you're going to survive.
Thank you, Teresa. Life Happens Consulting Business Plan Guru. Anybody else? What are you seeing for the businesses that are being sustained, or what are you doing? We want to tap your brain to sustain your business or businesses in this economy. And so a lot of people, they're only making it, and if all the lights are not green, they cannot survive. They don't have a cushion. We have stimulus packages that are coming. Should we be saving, investing? I'm not sure how long it's going to be before everything turns around, and we probably won't go back to what was normal, a few months ago. So what is
Kimberly,
it we need to sustain the businesses? Yes.
May I inject? I know we're at a sort of a precipice of issues right now. We have racial issues, we have health issues going on right now, but I truly believe that all these issues will pass. And for the folks that are a little bit older like me, that lived through the 60s and watched in 1968 every city in the United States burning, and the protests that went on in 69 and everything else, that too did pass. And I would encourage people to try to think beyond that, because I think we're trying to speak to the individual. There's a person out there that wants to get ahead. They want to have their piece of success and financial solvency. And you ask what some of the ingredients are, and I'm going to give you a couple of them. I heard it from one of the gentlemen about the business that he worked for, that the guy started in '54, which I thought was amazingly creative to get a loan for vacation, but use it to start a company. It was fantastic. But ingenuity, you said tenacity earlier, Kimberly. Personal investment of time. These are all qualities that the individual can have that doesn't necessarily rely on somebody else's approval or acceptance. Those are qualities of your own. And if you have those, you can do a lot with it. I know that someone's listening today in this podcast, not a podcast.
Zoom, Facebook.
Zoomcast. Yeah, from Missouri Western State University. And they are doing some fantastic things with, you name it, pick a color, size, male, female, whatever, with entrepreneurs that want to get started. And I don't have to go that far back in time. Just a few years ago, a young African-American man named Isaac Collins came to us and said he wanted to own his own business. And we encouraged him to take the entrepreneurship course. He did phenomenal. He put a lot of effort into it and was successful in the class, was successful in winning the competition. And today he's operating 2 stores in Kansas City. He operated one in the middle of Iowa, in the cornfields of Iowa, for several years, was highly successful there, and is in the process of buying a 3rd business. Yes, he had connections. He had the university's support. Yes, he had some financing. We have some people that helped put up some of the money for him. But there are opportunities out there. And that's the main thing that you need to get across to people that are here. There's opportunities today in St. Joseph right now. And I'll give you, we have more opportunities than we have people. Right now we have one person that's competing in August to win a store, to own their own business. We have one person. So guess what?
Wow.
You got a pretty good chance of winning. We're starting enrollment for the spring semester and the commitment to that. We'd love to see as many African-American young men or women come and register for that class. And even if you don't win, there's an extraordinary opportunity that happens in that you're around people that are of common mind and thinking and goal setting. It will do a lot for you. So that's just my little quick tirade, a little commercial for Missouri Western at the same time.
David, you have just joined the show. He's our real estate developer. And David, we have been talking about what's making us successful. You've just been doing this for a few years now with your real estate. How are you getting around all these barriers and disparities that are unique and maybe just kind of distracting to success as an African-American man?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of distractions. I'm always doing a little bit of studying on socioeconomics. So basically, I guess, what does the future hold? Not just for me, but for everybody. And one of the things that I think it really it's going to be a major part in how we move toward the future is what type of business you're in. I don't know if you guys have already previously discussed it, but one of the things that I think about a lot is some businesses are just, they're just more easily applied or easily executed. So I think a lot of it depends on what type of business you're in. And I also think that, me personally, I think there's a lot that we can apply to every business, and there's some things that work for every business, like hard work, dedication, research, putting in the time, having a mentor, a lot of things like that. But real estate, I just started a few years ago, and it is going well. But we start small. Obviously in St. Joe, you can get a house for probably just a few $1,000 in the right area. You take your time, but it was my passion. I didn't want anything else but to do that. So the dilemma I have with where we're at now, and this is also a question, I don't know if anyone else cares to answer, but my question is also, how do we feel about long-term, I guess, unemployment or universal basic income, which they say is now an option, where every citizen basically gets a check just for being a citizen? Does that hurt us in the long term? Is it helping us? I'm more of a believer that assistance like that is better used when it's in a temporary state. But, you know, with, like Steve Craig just said, when there's only one person competing, obviously he's going to win. And I think that might be part of the dilemma is the generation we live in not passionate enough?
Well, let me say, I don't think anybody ought to get anything for nothing, because the Bible says if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. So,
yeah.
But what I think has to happen in our society is that there has to be a level playing field. At some point, it's got to be equitable. And, you know, I have all these stories. I became pastor of our church after my father in 1989. In 1990, I had $100,000 in a particular bank. I wanted to put in a parking lot. I went to the bank and said, I want to borrow $150,000. And I put this $100,000 up for collateral. And they came back 3 days later and said, well, we had a bad church loan one time at our bank years ago, and we're not going to loan churches any money. So I took all my money out. And of course, I went to another bank. So it wasn't because of that. It was simply because they didn't want to loan money in my neighborhood. So if we could ever get a level playing field, then it would solve many problems. You know, being a police board commissioner, they said to me, Bishop, how do we, you know, help police in your neighborhood? And I looked at them and said, give us more jobs, give us economic equity, and you will find people will be too busy to commit crimes. And they looked at me as if, you know, I didn't know what I was talking about, but I've talked to enough people to know that there are some solutions out there, and they are economic.
When we talk about equity, panelists tonight, if you're just now tuning in to Solution Summit, this is week number 4, maybe number 5. You can go to the Mid-City Excellence page if you want to review the other weeks, but we're talking about economic empowerment, generational poverty, welfare systems, and wealth creation. So we have just a team of experts from around the country tonight that are trying to come up with how we put this nation back together and how we keep it from unraveling. So Bishop Tolbert just talked about, who serves on the Police Commission Board and has for-profit, nonprofit entities, as well as a Bill Gates funded Lee Tolbert Academy. And so I just see too that my mentor for many years, Dr. Vivian Roper, has joined the show, and she's going to Bishop Tolbert has a convention he has to be at 7 online. And so she's going to help answer some of the hard questions. Welcome to the show, Dr. Vivian Roper. Dr. Roper is the superintendent of Lee Tolbert Academy Charter Schools. She is also the first African-American principal that I've known. And so I've known her since I was 3 years old. And so we'll just have her join in. When you talk about equity and access to capital in a different type of way and overcoming all of these discriminatory practices, are we talking about David too? Reparations? Are we talking about the 40 acres and the mule? Are we talking about returning to affirmative action? Because when we struck down that bill, when we struck down that law, now we have areas of education, areas of banking, again, where we see no minorities. Do we need to consider that again, or is there a better way to get back to equity?
Are you
Is
asking?
that directed? Oh.
Anybody that wants to jump in. I mean, how do we get back to levelizing the playing field? If it was it ever leveled? Was it ever balanced? I hear there was businesses flourishing at one time, you know, on Massaini Street, one time with Wall Street or Black Wall Street. What are we talking
There
about?
was
How do we
also
get
a
back to
close
that?
there was also a close in the economic gap in the 80s. It wasn't perfect, but I think sometime in the late 80s we had kind of the closest racial gap, smallest racial gap that existed in the United States. Economically.
Can you all, okay, can someone else address that? Are we talking about reparations? Are we talking about, David said, give everybody, you know, $1,000 a month? Everybody's on the welfare system. Everybody's on.
I have one more thing. Sorry, I'm not an economic person at all, but we have a problem here where people don't want to go back to work because of the unemployment checks.
And I have a problem here where we cannot motivate people out of subsidized housing and off the welfare check. They are gifted. They are brilliant. They have gold. They're you know, a gold, diamonds in a rough. But I can't get them to go to the interviews that Steve Craig's talking about. 1,200 jobs unfulfilled, yogurtinis, Aspens waiting to happen. Somebody needs to run his shopping malls. So it's very difficult to get people.
I'll add to it. So this is the dilemma that I was talking about, specifically more with socioeconomics. What does the future hold? Like, where are we at now? Where are we going based off economics, and what do we look like just based on the current situation? And what do the next 6 months look like? The next 2 years, and then the next 10 years. So with that being said, it's, you know, what I'm seeing more and more, I think we had this problem before COVID-19. There's just more of a lack of people that want to, you know, have a career or be successful. I'm not talking about a dead-end job. There's just a lack of people, it seems, that want to get out there and make something of themselves and have something that they can be proud of. So these are just some of the questions. And the question that I have to keep going back to is, do we necessarily, is some of the welfare assistance, and I like it for what it can do in theory, but in reality, is it hurting us more than helping us? If we have, you know, 1,200 jobs I was in Walmart several weeks ago, and I was just trying to get some paint, and I couldn't get anybody to come to the counter. One of the managers finally came over, and he said, look, hey, we got like over 50 jobs available. We can't get anybody in here to do it. So, and, you know, I understand some people might consider it, you know, it's Walmart, but Walmart's a job. And until you get something else, it's a job. So I don't know if our current state, with giving us, you know, checks every month because of unemployment, or the previous presidential candidate, Andrew Yang, he suggested UBI, Universal Basic Income, just give everyone, I think it was $1,000 a month. This is the mentality right now. And these are the things that concern me, because I understand if you don't want to work what some might consider the job that doesn't have a long-term future. But, you know, I've done all sorts of jobs, and I would still do it if I had to, because that's how you get to where you want to go. So this is a shift that I think that we're coming up on, that I don't know if a lot of people are really prepared for where we're at. I don't know if this is like other times, and I'll be honest, I'm not old enough to know, but these are the things that can